got a trio. We've got, it's talking about AI-driven workforce intelligence, and we've got Lynsey O'Keefe, CEO at Sodexo, Caroline Durkin, Head of Ops for AstraZeneca, and Lee Eccleshare, VP at Amplyfi. Sorry.
Fantastic. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am Lynsey O'Keefe, as it says up there. Hopefully my picture resembles a little bit of what I look like. And I am the CEO of Corporate Services, UK and Ireland, and Energy Resources as well. So when we were asked to talk today, I didn't want to come on my own, and I thought three of us would be far better. But actually, why? Because I want to take you through the journey. I want to take you through the data, then what the client wants, and then me as a service provider, what must we do? Because I think there are lots of very exciting things that we can do in AI and in this space. But actually, if it's not what the client wants, we need to make sure that we prioritise our action. So you're going to hear from Lee and Caroline, and I'm going to hand over to Lee first.
Hi everyone, Lee Eccleshare here, so VP at Amplyfi. And Amplyfi have been working with Sodexo for quite a while now, and what we do is we provide AI-driven intelligence across a number of different verticals, a number of places. So essentially we come in, help Sodexo and try and find places where AI can speed up their intelligence and then make their decision-making data-driven. So if I just come to the next slide, what I'm going to try and show you now is just a quick use case. We've heard lots about AI today and in how in general terms it can be used, how in general terms it might be applied. But what I actually want to do is show you some fresh new data where we've used AI to try and come up with a question and some insight derived from, an answer from a very real question. So as I'm joined today from Caroline from AstraZeneca, where we've chosen to kind of pitch this little mini case study is using AI in the realm of pharmaceuticals. So I'm going to make clear, this isn't something we've done on AstraZeneca in their research. What I'm going to talk about is very general across the whole pharmaceutical landscape. And more specifically, I've taken essentially the top 20 pharmaceutical companies. And the question we're trying to answer is, for these companies, what might the future look like because of AI? What might their workforce look like? How might that workforce change? So we've taken AI and tried to answer the question of how is AI going to revolutionize this workforce? So what you're looking at here is we've sent our AI engine into the internet and asked it to try and find, first of all, we've heard a lot today about data and getting this gold standard high quality data. So if you have bad data, you can then get bad results and make bad decisions. So for this piece of analysis, we wanted to only look at academic content. And the thesis here is that if we can find academic content that's linked exclusively to the top world's pharmaceutical companies, can we then start to make judgments about what their future workforce might look like to then start to make good decisions and change how we start to view those workforces? So the graph we're seeing is the resultant from that search. So we were able to gather around 225,000 academic articles, and each one of these academic articles is either paid for by a pharmaceutical organisation or run by a pharmaceutical organisation. And we were looking particularly at which ones of these talk about using AI. So we can see how the future pharmaceutical companies are going to change because of AI. And actually what we can see there is there's a huge growth in this overlap of pharmaceuticals and AI. Starting in 2018 up to 2024, there's almost a quadrupling of the footprint of AI within pharmaceutical research. So from around about 3% of the total research topics in 2018, all the way to about 11-12% in 2024. So that rapid growth, that inversion point around about 2018, where this field starts to take off. There's lots of things in here in terms of protein development. I think somebody earlier on mentioned AlphaFold. That's one of those things. It was a protein model that kind of revolutionized the way pharmaceuticals started to use AI. But then that gives us the question of what actually does this mean for the workforce? So we can then take things a step further and start to look at actually how can this be used to then start to predict the needs of the workforce. But because we've already spoke about the advantages AI has, one of those advantages is it is very fast. It does things really quickly, much faster than a human. So I know if I was to try and read and try and digest that 225,000 academic documents, it would take me a very long time. On the kind of the opposite side of that, you can leverage AI, use those models to try and bring back data. So at a really simplistic level, what you could do, you could take the Copilot, the Gemini type large language models, and you could ask it, how is the future of pharmaceutical workforce going to change? The answer it gives you will actually probably be quite good. It'll probably be quite accurate. However, what it won't be is data-driven. What that next step is trying to take it from just the qualitative, oh, there's going to be, in this case, what we've found is computational biology is a big part of this data landscape. What we can then start to do is quantify that, start to structure this into different data sets. So then, as an organization, you can start to make decisions about the future. And that then impacts the people on the front line in these organizations and at these places. So when we then sent our AI away to start reading some of these particular papers and trying to classify what are they talking about, there's some standout things here. So clinical trials, the way in which clinical trials are going to happen at pharmaceutical agencies is completely changing, the way they're structured. Computational biologists are something that's taking off, especially in 2024. That's the most prevalent discussion topic within this data set. So then this is the data-driven view, and then it's down to people like Caroline, who then need to work out, what does this mean when you want to try and take this forward? What does this mean for your industry and your people? So a couple of points of what this might mean if I'm running an R&D site and I can see that I think because of our academic research at an organisational level, computational biologists are going to become more important. Does this mean that actually the services I have currently for my wet laboratories, do they need to change? Are my wet laboratories going to shrink as my computational laboratories expand? Does that mean I'm going to need data centres on site? Do I need more infrastructure, more data centres? Or what does this mean for the demographic of the people I'm hiring? Are computational biologists usually a different demographic? Are they different age? They expect different things from a wet lab biologist. So there's lots of decisions in there to make it at the people level. So that's kind of where AI can fit in as a hard use case here for trying to derive data, trying to get actual insight, and then enable you to make better decisions on how this can then impact the workforce and how it goes forward. So having had the theoretical and the data side, I'd like to hand over to Caroline to actually look at what does this mean for lived-in experience and how does it look at somewhere like AstraZeneca?
Thanks, Lee. I promise you I'm not going to give you a science lecture, but I think what Lee's sort of given us is this, get the high-level insights into how data and AI is influencing pharma more broadly. I guess speaking specifically about AstraZeneca and how we're using AI both in this, the area of discovery, but also how that makes us ensure that our facilities really enable our scientists to do their best work. So, as Lee said, my name is Caroline Durkin. I am Head of R&D and Commercial Operations for AZ sites across the UK. And I do want to give you a bit of an insight how I think there's been a lot of talk today about, why we do this and the purpose of it. And for me, as a client of lots of you in this room, it's really important that you understand the purpose of your client and that you can really draw a connection between what you do and whether that's delivering FM services or developing AI to what that organisation needs you to do. And in AstraZeneca, we're very clear. We have a very bold ambition to deliver 20 new medicines by 2030. And to do that, we need to be much more productive than we are now. We need to automate processes. We need to recruit and retain the best people. Back in 2013, AZ decided to make the move from our R&D facility in the northwest to Cambridge. And for those of you that sort of know the pharma industry, you'll know that this sort of golden triangle of Cambridge, Oxford and London is really the heartbeat of life sciences in the UK. It's where you attract the best talent. It's where you work with academia on the best collaborations. So the move to Cambridge was to facilitate that. We made the decision to move in 2013. It took us quite a long time to move into the new building. We were besieged with we had a flood, we had a fire, and we had a global pandemic in the middle of it all. So it was actually, we were quite a long time before we moved in. But actually, in those years that the building was getting finished and commissioned and soft landings and all the rest of it, the world of AI in science really changed, but it also changed in terms of our employees' expectations of the workplace. So we were, this is the saying, is we're designing the plane as we were flying it, really, to try and make sure we were keeping up with things. But actually, employees' expectations of what they need in the workplace is very different from what was before. And I think Lee mentioned about, areas of science that are really reliant on developing that AI technology. The area of AZ that we sit in is really in that early discovery, that R&D phase. And AI is really influencing that, be it in how we use AI to do predictive modelling on that early discovery. There's been a couple of times today mentioned about clinical trials. With the use of AI, clinical trials are a hugely expensive enterprise in the pharma industry. So, if you can make those clinical trials much more bespoke, if you can get, the right cohorts for them, if you can design the right clinical trial designs, then that shortens that whole period. And every pharma, I don't know if there's any other pharma folk in the room, but every pharma, we're all in the same race for the same thing, right? So the more productive you are in those early phases, the quicker you are to get medicines to a patient, which is what I guess collectively in pharma and with our supply partners we're trying to do. The patient engagement and the experience, there's a lot talked nowadays about, healthcare, pharma being more about sort of personalised medicines, and you're able to do that much more with the use of AI. But, through all of that, as I said, our employees' expectations of the workplace have changed as well. What they experience within the laboratory, they want that same access to things, being more personalised for them in the workplace. So whether that is, how they commute to work, how they find a meeting room, how they get their favourite coffee. The expectation is that if you're to support scientists and people who support scientists being able to be more productive and efficient, then the facility that they're working in needs to enable them to do that. And whether that's, in a lab where, we're really focused, there's a lot of talk today as well about data. And for us, data is really what enables us to make smart decisions about how we use our building. So, uptime within labs is absolute. Every minute that a lab or a piece of equipment in a lab is not working is downtime that we can't afford to have. So that whole experience of our employees is really, really critical. And I guess, having on board a supply partner who understands that. Again, there's a lot of talk today about, the scary world of AI and it's going to take people's jobs. But, my ask to you as, I guess, a client would be that you take the time to find out what's important for your client, and you, in the same way that you do with sort of traditional hard and soft services, you set your sort of digital and data strategy aligned to what's going to make a difference to them. It shouldn't be stuff that is gimmicky. It should be stuff that makes a real difference, both within the lab, but also for the people who work there. So I think Lynsey's going to talk specifically about how Sodexo have worked with us and other clients to enable that.
Wow, thank you. Okay. So huge thanks to Lee and Caroline. Lee's talked about how we harness that data, how that data can give us some really early indications of things that we need to do differently. And then as Caroline's talked to us about our role as an FM and a food service provider to align to their business objectives and ultimately their ambition. And I think we'd all agree that the AstraZeneca ambition is pretty important to every single person in this room. So we're very proud to have been on that journey with AstraZeneca. But then how do we shape our workplace solutions? And Nush before talked about the what. So what are the things that we can technically and physically do? And I want to talk to you about what the outcomes are. Now, clearly, it's all about translating this vast amount of data, high quality data, into actionable and meaningful insight. And what does that really mean? It's sometimes taking all of that information and making it really obvious really quickly. And if it's real time, it allows us to do something really quickly, which will not only help our clients on our ambition, but also maybe we can become more efficient, and maybe we can give greater savings back to our clients to reinvest in what's really important. If I think about something that is at the heart of everything that we're all achieving and we're striving to achieve, and it is a different conference, is about the journey to net zero. And one of the things that we're doing with our data is pulling it back into a building index, performance index. And why is that important? Well, if you think about an EPC rating that we'd all be familiar with our buildings or our homes, how do we use that data to figure out where we are and what do we need to do to get there? And that's just one example of where we can use it. We all know the workplace is evolving and our employees' expectations have quadrupled since COVID. How do we make the workplace a destination of choice? And then how do we make that a real key differentiator for the likes of the AstraZenecas of the world that need to battle in that race against talent? So how can we do that? Well, firstly, how can we enhance the productivity of those colleagues through the day? I'm going to use the example of green lights. You've driven to work and it's just gone smoothly. Green lights all the way. That is our ambition as a client, as a customer and a consumer, travels through one of our workplaces all the way through the day. It's what they need when they need it. It's seamless and it's adaptable in the moment. So it's preempting what they need even before they realise they need it. Also, as a food service provider, how do we translate that back to what's actually on the plate for our consumers? We have a couple of tools in our kit bag. One of them is our Everyday app, which is our consumer-facing interaction platform that can be personalised for their preferences. It can give them all of their options as they're thinking about what they need that day to get them through the rest of the day from a food point of view. Simply, it's about just removing any effort to make them have that green light experience. Then there's an engine that sits behind it called Foresight. And what that engine is doing is pulling all of that information back through the system and giving our teams the real information that they need to do to make that productive green light environment. And then finally, let's talk about demand-based FM. There'll be lots of people in the room who remember good old-fashioned cleaning input specifications. And we've moved to output specifications. But now it's really about what the outcome is. And that is about us being able to accurately plan and predict the resources that we need to once again feel that green light experience. So ultimately, by transacting that data into actionable and meaningful insight, we can support the strategic agenda of our clients. So that's kind of the what, but what about looking forward and the environment we must create? We have to have a mindset to embrace digital excellence. We have to do that. And if you can't do that, there's not much point entering the race. Once you've done that, you must empower your colleagues, because there's no use having real-time data if you will not give them the empowerment to do something with it. And we do need to train them and protect them in these advanced methodologies. Generative AI, we've spoken about that a lot. And it's a big topic today in the press. At Sodexo, we're globally looking at Copilot. How do we make that work? But if you can switch the 80-20 rule from pulling the data together and making the fix, if you can completely flip that, the efficiency, the productivity you drive will really help boost business objectives. And then I think it's about creating and in the press today, it's all about being fair. It's about making it positive. Whilst AI is a nervous topic for so many, it's about making it positive and right for our clients and our people. And I guess I will leave you with a final thought, and it's why Caroline came and joined me today. We met after a roundtable about this very specific topic. And I think if we looked 5 years ago and the data's shown it, we probably all thought this was something that was coming for the next generation. And we've seen how it's progressed so quickly over the last 5 years. But if I look at the people in this room today, it's not the next generation who have the business acumen or the experience to get this right. Therefore, it is on us to make sure that we really make this work in a safe and a very positive way. Thank you.
Thank you.